So am I recording? Oh yeah, I'm recording already.
Yeah,
So Phil, your last entry was perfect in some ways because it segues into my next one, and you've actually solved a mystery for me, oddly enough. So
okay.
my next one is kind of a very typical movie choice, but there's a little bit of a reason behind. So it's Casablanca. I know some people would groan at just hearing that, but I remembered, or I couldn't remember exactly what theater I had seen it in. And at first, and I saw it by myself. At first, the review came to mind, but then I was like, no, the review was the one near Ossington, and it wasn't that. Or is it Ossington or Osgood? I get those two streets mixed up. Bloor and Osgood.
Ossington.
Ossington. Okay. Yeah. But then the Kings, then I was thinking, no, this is the one for sure. And it was on a Sunday afternoon. It was the one near Roy York, and that's the Kingsway. Yeah. But then I completely forgot about the nostalgia until you just mentioned it now. And I'm certain that's where I would have seen it.
Probably that's exactly what the kind of stuff they show.
And it was on a Sunday afternoon, a great time. Like, you know, and I'd say maybe until I've had a family, sometimes still with my family, but one of my favorite sort of times within any week is like a late Sunday afternoon. Like just something about that time I like. And I saw a showing of Casablanca. I think it would have been something like a 4:30 Sunday afternoon showing. Again, really didn't know that much about it. And I mean, the reason I'm listing it is because I think it might have been one of the first time. Like, I think this probably happened like when I was still kind of new to Toronto and new to Ryerson. So I'm thinking maybe around 84 or something. I would have been 20. I really didn't watch a lot of old movies prior to that. And I went, saw it by myself. I think at the Nostalgia Cinema. And it was just the experience, right? It was just like going into this sort of musty theater, seeing this old movie. I was completely swept away by it at the time. And I think it was just sort of that move, I'm trying to think of a music correlative, but it was just sort of seeing that movie that just made me think, yeah, I got to start like going backwards too. Like I can't just keep like watching the present stuff or cool music movies and stuff like that. I've got to so it put me on a little bit of a mania for that. So really, that's really all there is to it. I mean, I like Casablanca. I think it holds up pretty good. I've watched it a few times since. It's definitely not as, I see a lot of hokey parts in it when I watch it now. But it was just one of those, I remember leaving the theater feeling a little bit dazed by the experience. And I just loved it. Like I loved that it was a Sunday afternoon and it was a really good experience. So
it was a great theater. I'm trying to remember if they had separate concessions or whether you had to go downstairs to
I think they had a separate, but I can't.
I think so too.
That's a good question.
And just before Steven speaks, sorry, go ahead, Scott.
No, I'm good, Phil. Go.
Just before we switch over, Steve, I'll keep this to under a minute. And I forgot about a memorable screening, two of them at the nostalgic 1983. Before these films went back into circulation, somehow they got hold of bootleg prints of both Vertigo and Rear Window.
Wow.
When they were not allowed to be played anywhere. And what I remember about that is telling everybody in my film program with great excitement, they're playing Rear Window and Vertigo. And I expected to see literally everybody from Cinema Studies there. There was nobody. Why are you taking film at university if you're not going to take the time to go see these two famous films that you can't see?
So why were they out of circulation? Why were they out of circulation? Was it just a technical thing with distribution or something? Or?
Do you know why, Stephen? There was 5 of them. Those two, The Trouble with Henry, and 2 others.
I forget why. I feel like Hitchcock had something to do with it, but
maybe
I don't remember the details.
It was everything from 50, like Psycho, he switches to a new studio. But anyway, I found that so exciting. And Vertigo kind of, and I'm still on it, but Rear Window, I just loved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Stephen. You're up.
Okay, I'm going to just combine a bunch into the experience of being a film major. One of the things, I watched most of this stuff in the same room all the time. To set it up in California in the mid-70s, we passed a proposition that kept property taxes at the existing level.
Very prominent, one of the Rick Perlstein.
Up 13. So what happens is the state starts running out of money. And that's felt to this day. But the reason I bring it up is because when I first went to college for real, well, not even for real, for actual, in the 73 and 74, and I was a film major. It was at a junior college, which doesn't seem like much, except there was hella money in those days in California. So it didn't cost anything to go. You had to buy your books, no tuition, no fees. They had a free film program where they showed the double bill 5 nights a week for free. That's 10 movies in a week right there. I was a film major and I wasn't really planning my future in education, so I would take 2 or 3 film classes and nothing else. So that was like a year and a half where all I do is watch movies for free. That's the setup as far as that goes. At that same time, as a film major, I wanted to be Nicholas Rogue. He was my hero at the time. And so this steps out a little bit out of that. But when Don't Look Now came out, well, we had to go see it, of course. We went and saw that in the theater. My wife and I and a friend. You guys seen Don't Look Now?
I have, yeah.
I want to. I haven't though.
Okay, well, Phil will understand this, which is Nicholas Rogue is, when he's at his best, he has a way of throwing you out of sync a bit because his movies are so jagged, and if you get sucked into them, the world seems a bit different for a minute. Well, when we walked out of the movie theater, it was a night after seeing Don't Look Now. We were in San Francisco, and we looked down this alleyway and seeing where our car was or something. And I swear to God, there was some little person in a red coat walking down the street. Anybody who's seen the movie and watching this video will understand why we were freaked out.
Yeah.
Anyway, the specific experiences to that, one was that I actually was working part-time as a teacher's assistant in those days at the age of 19 or whatever. And I got fired once because we had Harold and Maude was a movie, and they had invited a psychology professor, psychiatrist, I don't know, to talk about the movie. And it was like, showed it at 7, the guy gave his spiel, and then showed it at 9 something. Well, we decided to watch the 9 something. I hadn't seen it before. And here's this guy, he probably gave a brilliant reading. But all I know is I haven't seen this movie. He's telling me the plot and everything else about it. So I was pissed. And so I started questioning him. Wait a minute, what's this? What's that? Who cares? Blah, blah. I haven't seen the movie. And the guy who ran the film program, I'm sitting on the aisle, he walks over to me and he says, "You're fired." Because I yelled at this guy. The next day I was back because he said I was representing the film program. I said, I'm just me. Anyway, and the Harold Maude, I think of that state. Anyway, the whole reason this is on here is Breathless, which was probably the first Godard I'd seen. And it showed.
It's not the Richard Gere Breathless.
No. It's the Godard Breathless. And I watched this movie, and I might have seen another French New Wave movie. I don't even know. I was so taken with Breathless that when it was over, I just didn't leave. And they showed it for a second time, and I watched it again. First time. Well, okay, I have to say, we did that with Yellow Submarine once when we were high. That doesn't really count. I sat there and watched it a second time because I wanted to, because I was so blown away by what it was. And that's something I asked earlier with Phil if you still feel that way. I watched Breathless to this day. I can't really remember why I had to watch it a second time, even though I still love it. I could watch it 2 times in a row. But it made an impression on me in that I'm telling you the story now. So, 50 years later, I still remember that I wanted to watch that movie a second time. Probably helped that it wasn't very long, as far as that goes. But
and you didn't get kicked out by an usher or something like?
No, because that was I was one of the TAs.
Oh yeah, okay. So you could get away with that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Plus, I think you could do that then if you wanted to.
Yeah,
easier. I'll throw in one more because I only have one thing left on my list, and that is to go ahead to when I was actually teaching. When I was an undergrad at Cal, I took a course on Westerns, and the professor showed us Junior Bonner. And he was my advisor, so I had to have a talk with him. I said, "Why are we watching this? Why aren't we watching Wild Bunch?" Well, he said, "I've shown Wild Bunch, and I just can't do it to the students. It's just too much." He said that when he showed it, by the end, they were like yelling at the screen, stop, stop, stop. So, okay, I thought he was being a little wuss, but hey, he's the professor. Now it's my turn to teach. And I've learned what he meant. First off, I showed on the first day of a class on the 80s, I showed the scene in the movie Near Dark where the vampires go to a chick kicker bar and eat everybody. It's one of the most violent scenes in Catherine Bigelow's oeuvre. And I had a student come up to me and say that he was not going to take my class because I was so repulsive to show that. And I bought what he said. I just never thought of it. This is a great scene. The second one was I assigned natural born killers, which I don't even like. But I thought there's plenty to say about it. And then they had to write an essay about it. And I had essays like, I can't write about the second half of the movie because I didn't really watch it. I had my hand over my face. At that point, I thought back to that other professor. And I thought, there is some things that you just have to save for the right group of students, I guess you'd say. Not an undergraduate class of 300 18-year-olds. That might not be the place for natural born killers. And that's my...
I had exactly the same experience with Natural Born Killers. I sat my dad down and we started watching it on VHS at home. And it was like 15 minutes. I'm looking at my dad and I thought, why would I ever subject my dad to this? And
had you seen it already?
I'd seen it. Okay. Yeah. And there were things about it I liked. And it was just like Stephen said, you don't show your dad that film.
Yeah, the Rodney Dangerfield stuff, especially.
Like the Rodney Dangerfield, or just some of the violence. And I don't even think I'd like the film now, but it's just a terrible choice.
Well, that's what I think. I was pretty taken by that movie at the time, but in the last 20 years, I thought, I'll live with the fact that I think I liked some of it at the time. I don't think I'm dying to see it again.
It's a period where, in the name of, I don't know what, I let the students pick. I would give them a list of like half a dozen movies, some of them their suggestion, and they would vote, and we would watch whatever they wanted. Because I don't know what I thought, but it didn't last very long because they made the worst choices. The Death of David Gale, The Life of David Gale, I can't remember.
Kevin Spacey.
Yeah. It was what I think. Oh, it was despicable.
I've never seen Junior Bonner. Is he a rodeo guy?
It's a good movie. It's not Wild West, but no.
Is he rodeo?
Yeah, Stephen King's in the rodeo. It's one of the Sam Peckinpah elege. How do you say that word?
Yeah, that or The Ballad of Cable Hogue. I've never seen either one.
Yeah, kind of like that. It's not a bad choice if you're teaching a class on the Western.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense as far as it goes. Yeah,
Death of the Western. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to switch. I'm going to try to wrap up here.
You guys are leaving me with five. Five at the end. Yeah, I've got.
No, then I won't, Scott, because I've got like 3 or 4 different sections. I think I've talked to you about our Rushmore screening, Scott. I don't know if I need to go over that again. It's just memorable because it got an ovation at the end. I saw Rushmore at the Uptown with Scott and his then girlfriend, and the theater erupted in applause at the time, which is something you don't get very often, especially when you're not in a rep theater. It happens sometimes in a rep theater. In fact, it happens somewhat regularly in a rep theater. I was at a rep screening a week ago or so where there was applause at the end. By the way, I should talk about the torturous 3 hours I spent 2 nights ago in a theater watching David Lynch's Inland Empire.
Oh, wow.
Which is a real love it or hate it thing. I know it has its defenders, and it's on the TS. They shoot pictures, don't they? Top 1,000. I just find it sheer torture for most of it, even though Laura Dern's great in it. So I'm going to switch to, I called it Various because it was the second or third Nuit Blanche I attended with Valerie. And this one involved films. And there are 2 parts of that I find still was very memorable. First one was they were showing, obviously, you guys know Nuit Blanche, right?
Yeah. No, I was about to ask you to explain it.
Okay, so Nuit Blanche, if I could even be mangling the pronunciation, but it's this thing they have in cities. COVID stopped it, and they're probably resuming now, where it's just events all around the city starting at about 10 o'clock and going deep into the night, past midnight. Like one year I saw
into the morning,
into the morning, I should say. One year, one of them, I attended, I think, 3 years in a row, and one of them, Neil Young, he wasn't there, but he debuted the album he made with Daniel Lanois. They debuted it down at City Hall. So this one had a couple of film events, and one of them was A Hard Day's Night screened at a speed that it would last for 24 hours. So what's the normal speed for screening a film? I can't remember how many frames per second.
24
so this
frames.
Was, this was slowed down to the point where, again, if you did it, it would be 24 hours. And it's like, it's past midnight, right? You're watching this, it's 1 o'clock. And that was extremely memorable. And the audio too, same thing, all the songs slowed down.
Wow.
Very dreamlike. And then we went over to, unfortunately, this is closed now. It's kind of sad. The NFB had, you probably passed it a million times, Scott. They had a kind of office head location right opposite City TV at that corner. It's a pizzeria now, I think. And you could go in and you could do NFB stuff. You could buy films. You could, I think, watch. They had screening rooms. Anyway, that was part of it. And they were showing silent films, NFB films, and it was about 3 a.m. at that point, and I'm just barely awake, but it is very dreamlike, and I think I really understood. And Hoberman wrote about it. You know, he and Rosenbaum did that Midnight Movies book a long time ago, and some midnight movies were like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but others were like Eraserhead, where part of it was, and probably El Topo, which I've never seen, part of it was like the dreamlike quality of seeing a film after midnight, and that really hit home that night. It was very memorable. I wish, sounds kind of, part of what made it memorable was that I wasn't wide awake, but I wish I was more awake and I'd remember more. That was great. And so if you've got more, Scott, I've got a mixed bag, the one that comes with stories. I'll just mention before I switch over though. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to get back to what you said just then.
Okay.
When you mentioned El Topo.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you the story without the story.
I was going to say, everyone has an El Topo.
In the building where Kale's Theater had been long ago, there was a little tiny movie theater over a restaurant in Berkeley. You went up skinny stairs, you went in this room, it couldn't have sat more than, I don't know, not very many.
Sounds exactly like the nostalgia.
It was so small that they had to project off of mirrors. So the projector would go down to a mirror, which would reflect the thing up to a mirror, which would reflect it to the screen. And that's how we watched the movie. And I've seen El Topo quite a few times, and that was one of them. But it was El Topo's its own story. But the idea that they were reflecting off of
that's wild. That's like a real acid movie, isn't it? Or acid western.
It's also violent, like bloody. So whatever. In my day, I thought it was the greatest.
I've never seen it just because I just don't think it's my sensibility, but. And just before we go back to Scott, in keeping with the whole idea of midnight movies, all my television screenings, I listed 6, they were all things that I've been waiting forever to see. And they just showed up out of the blue at 2 or 3 in the morning, often on, I still call it Channel 47, the multicultural station, sometimes on CFTO. But the 6 of them were Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I'd already seen once in a very butchered version at a like a B movie house in Toronto, and it was like not really seeing it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Night of the Living Dead, Repulsion, Peeping Tom, Michael Powell's Peeping Tom, Sweet Smell of Success. All of those are horror films. Sweet Smell of Success I saw for the first time very early in the morning, I think on Channel 47. And the other one is this really hard to see Robert Altman made for TV movie called Nightmare in Chicago. He made it in '64. It's about this serial killer called Georgie Porgy, and Ted Knight's in it in a straight role. And that was memorable. All these 6 films, I just had finally seen them, and it was just checking listings, TV guides and stuff. Oh, I got to watch that, and having to arrange my whole day to stay up, to make sure I'm awake at 3 in the morning. I don't know what I was doing, whether it was working or university. They were all at different points in my life.
Wow.
I think that you bring up a difference between now and whenever you want to go back. I know that I remember that experience. wonder what's on kind of
Yeah.
experience.
And
Nowadays,
it's just,
I have my lists, and I choose one of the lists, and I search for what's on HBO Max or whatever, and it pops up a list of 8, and I pick one. You know, that's not the same as,
No.
oh, look what's on.
Reading
It's
the
not
TV,
the same.
reading the TV guide the day it came out. That's what I would
Yeah,
do. Look at the
exactly.
It's the
TV
same.
guide.
It's the same thing with music, like having access to everything. You know,
Yeah.
there was an excitement, an indescribable excitement of something you've been waiting for years to see. And there it is at 3 a.m. coming up, you know? Now, we've talked about this. I have like access to Netflix and Prime and this and that. I don't watch anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't. It's just totally changed.
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay, I'll go in. I'll maybe try and do a couple, and I'll try and do them
Okay.
quickly. This
I
next one,
got my
Phil.
story one time.
Oh, sorry, were you not done, Phil?
No, I am done. What I'm
Okay,
saying is
okay.
I'm holding something in the
You're
back.
holding something back. Okay.
The things
So-
that are about stories and not the films.
So one part of this experience, I know Phil will. He might actually have more to say about this than I do in some ways. But it's "Don't Look Back," the Pennebaker movie, of course. And you know, apart from the fact that it was, and I think I can pinpoint that it was '85, and I really wasn't a big Dylan fan. You know, I grew up a Stones fan and a Beatles fan, but just not a Dylan fan. And anyway, just was that overwhelming experience. It was "Don't Look Back" and the Anthony Scaduto book that kind of made Dylan click for me before I really launched into getting the records and stuff. Like I saw "Don't Look Back," I was just completely blown away. But what was interesting about it is where I saw it. Phil, you'll remember this for sure.
Reg Hart.
Yes, exactly. Did you ever see that one there, or did you just see other stuff?
I saw it
there?
at, so we didn't see it together?
No, well, because the other memorable thing about this, I don't think I should mention the name because it's someone I came to not like very much, and I know Phil doesn't really care for the person much. It was a nerve, not who you're initially thinking, but it was a nerve person,
Yeah.
and I didn't go with the person. It was a person who ended up of some local renown in a band, and probably many bands, and also a writer.
Okay.
But anyway, this person just ended up being there, and you know, he was by himself, so we sat together. Whatever, that part was fine. But Stephen, just to give you a little picture of this, this I wouldn't call it a theater. I can't remember if it was even just a house or some kind of
Something
office
like
space.
that.
But
Yeah.
it's this guy Reg Hart. He's of local renown. He was like a movie collector. I think he had like a lot of, he was well known, I think, for a lot of animation stuff, right? He had a real like
Betty Boop,
Betty Boop,
Betty Boop.
uncensored Betty Boop,
Yeah.
and he would show old Max Fleischer cartoons or whatever. But he also showed, you know, stuff like rock and roll movies and so forth. So anyway, I saw the Dylan movie there, but I think that was the first time I went to his theater. I think I maybe only saw half a dozen things where he screened the films, but it just, I mean, you're talking about a place where there's like, you're watching it sitting in like a cafeteria type wooden chair. I think he served coffee in like, you know, styrofoam cups. Like it was just like, it really was kind of like being in someone's living room, but it was a very neat experience because he would do like these long talks. His talks were
That's what
actually
he's
quite long,
famous for.
interminably long
I
talks
know.
before the movie. And then if you wanted to stick around after the movie to hear what he had to say about it. But, you know, I remember some of it was quite, I mean, he was actually obviously quite knowledgeable about it, but it's kind of like the ultimate like movie geek, you know, bringing his collection of stuff to the, you know, to anyone who wanted to pay to see it. I don't know how he would have got something like "Don't Look Back." Like, would he have the
I don't know.
must have
I
had
know
the
he
rights
used
to
to-
show it.
He used to cycle around town. He used to put his posters up. I remember once I was still with Valerie and he was cycling around and I went up and I got his autograph. I said, "Valerie, I love this." And of course, you know, I handed it to her. She's like, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't. I wonder if he's still doing it. I can't believe he survived COVID. Like, his
Yeah, I don't-
business-
I-
not him, but his business.
Yeah, hard to imagine. So,
But that's where I saw it too. Don't Look Back. Yeah.
so I'll do the next one. These two are in some ways the most, well, I guess I would call them absolute disaster date movies, both of them. And I think I've told Phil about at least one of these. So one was in whatever year What's Love Got to Do with It, the Tina Turner biopic came out. I don't, the movie's kind of meaningless to me. I mean, there's some good things about it. It was okay. I liked it at the time, sort of. So I was on a date with a girl I had not been dating that long. We didn't know each other all that well. And it's a creepy story, actually. So obviously you know what the movie's about. And as the violence in the movie starts to pick up with Ike Turner smacking Tina around. I remember there's a scene at a goldfish bowl, and I don't know if he banged her head into it.
I've never seen the film.
Pretty brutal. But there was an older gentleman, I shouldn't call him a gentleman, an older person in the theater, and he started yelling stuff. Like he was saying stuff like, "Oh, that's bullshit. That didn't happen like that." And at one point, he actually said, "Come on, Ike, like hit her harder or something." And then he was sort of insinuating that, like, I think he even said, like, I was there, like
I was just going to
like,
say, was this Ike Turner himself?
no, but he insinuated that and like it was just one of those moments, like, and I'm on my date, and he was very close to where we were sitting. And being the He-Man I was, I just like froze. I'm like, I don't know what to do about this. I do remember that. So then this one guy who's like kind of a jock, like a guy, probably around my age, in his 20s. I mean, I just remember he had a baseball hat. He was kind of heftily built, and he went up. Like the ushers didn't come out immediately and did anything. So this jock guy who was watching the movie, I think he was with his date as well. He went up to the guy. There was a seat beside the guy. He went upside him. I remember he put his arm around the guy and said something like, "Hey buddy, you gotta like keep it down from here on in," or something. And it did kind of, temper it. I remember he would, for the rest of the movie, he would just occasionally grumble things at the screen, but it was so weird and creepy. Like it was just like, and I think it was all we talked about, obviously, when we got out of the movie, but it was just like, okay, that was like a stilted first date. The other one's even in some ways weirder, but it's might be my imagination. But this is when I lived in Vancouver, and I was working with, and I got free tickets. I think it was through another guy. I worked in a beer and wine store, and I think this guy who was the manager, he was kind of in the entertainment industry as well. We sort of became friends, and I think he had like won tickets to the premiere of the Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me movie, but he couldn't go. So he asked me if I was. I said, "Oh yeah, I'm interested in David Lynch. Sure, I'll take them." And then there was another girl who worked there. She worked in the office. And, we'd kind of been, I'd say, flirting just a little bit or whatever before that. So I asked her if she wanted to go with me. So she did. We took the bus downtown Vancouver, went to see Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. And it was full. The theater was full. And that movie got terribly reviewed. But we walked out of the theater and, me, Mr. Tactful, instead of saying, "So what'd you think?" I get out of the theater. I'm like, "Oh, that was incredible. Eh? Like, just so wild." Like, I'm just going on and on about how wild I thought it was. She literally did not say a single word to me. The rest, like, I took her home on the bus. She looked completely like she was going to be ill or something. We still worked together for a while. But like I said, she was kind of in the office part, and I was like working on the floor of the store. And it completely, like, it just decimated any hope of even having a friendship with her. And I mean, the reason it was so weird too is I actually thought after, many years later, it occurred to me, it's like, God, I hope like maybe she was like, there's a lot of like abuse in that movie, right? And it's like, could be like the ultimate sort of triggering movie for someone like that. Like she literally was, and I remember even saying, "Wow, this is so weird. Like you won't even like say anything to," like, it was just so bizarre. And
had she seen Twin Peaks though?
Oh, I don't think so. She was not like, I don't think, no, I'm pretty sure. I just assume not. Like,
well, that's a hard film.
I either figured maybe she's like Christian, right? Or maybe she like, I don't, but it was not a good experience. And it just, I think the one time I did run into her, like shortly after in the store, was like, I did say, I'm really sorry you didn't like that movie or whatever. She just kind of giggled it off a little bit, but it was just so weird. So anyway, just don't take a date to a movie like that.
I was by myself in Inland Empire, so there wasn't any.
Yeah.
So I've got three quick stories. Sorry, Stephen, did you have more? You said you were done. Did you have more?
Something came to mind.
Go ahead,
Thing,
please.
it's marginally movie related. It was a conference on campus, and honestly, I don't remember what paper I gave because it was irrelevant. The first person, it was just two people, and the first person was a woman, Constance Penley, who is a STEAM scholar and still around, I think. Anyway, her specialty, at least at the time, was porn. And she had brought this collection of ancient, like silent porn and stuff. And she was trying to show us how, porn didn't just get invented in Deep Throat or whatever, or in, stag movies. No. This is like silent porn movies, guys doing the donkeys and everything. And she was very engaging. And of course, the stuff she was showing was fascinating.
Some good visual possibilities for this video, by the way.
And now here's Stephen Rubio. Yeah. Like I say, I don't remember what it was I had to say, because how can you follow silent porn movies?
Well, if it's donkeys, you play the Bresson film, right? Mohazard Bells of or something. So mine are, we got about 8 minutes left. I can wrap these up pretty quickly. And I have a feeling I've told two of these stories, but our vast viewing audience has not heard them. So I'll tell them. My Michael Snow story, I must have told you that, right? So we're at a Michael Snow thing at the Cinematheque. It wasn't even called, I think it even had a different name. Can't remember. I think he was showing Back and Forth and Wavelength. And I'm with my roommate, Tom Mayock, who's come back to live in the city after bombing out his first year. Anyway, Michael Snow, if you've ever seen him interviewed, he's just a very kind of severe guy. I mean, if you can think of his films, if you've seen his films, he doesn't strike you as someone that's going to be really boisterous and humorous. So he was very serious, and the theater was, everyone there was very deferential to him, this famous avant-garde filmmaker from the 60s. And he's talking, and they open it up to questions, and people were intimidated to ask questions. It was really, nobody put up their hand. And either I or my roommate whispered to the other guy, he said, ask him what he thinks of Ghostbusters. And we had just such a giggling fit, like so bad. I had to cover myself. And the theater was still really quiet. And I am trying to suppress a giggling fit, people around me. It was awful. I've told the story a billion times, but at the time it was so uncomfortable. The other one is Frederick Wiseman. He had the series here, and he spoke. He wasn't there every night, but he was there for at least one night. And no, sorry. I saw a series of his films at the Lightbox, but then I saw him speak at Hot Docs, right? And I think he was there to show his boxing film. I didn't care for it that much, but they opened up to questions later. And I asked him about his film Juvenile Court. And I asked him if he ever had kept in touch with any of the people in the film. And it was just the wrong question to ask him, like you could just tell as soon as I said it, he thought it was the dumbest question anybody could ask. And it was almost like he had to force himself to give an answer, something like, well, no, why would I do that? Because, and I should have known that, because his approach as a documentarian, he has a certain approach. If you've seen his films, he's a fly on the wall. But it's not like he gets involved. There are other filmmakers documentarians who get involved in the lives of their subjects and, do follow-ups. I think the guy that made Hoop Dreams is very much like that. And that's not Wiseman. And you could tell he took great offense at the question. I don't think he actually answered it. It was more like, why would I ever do that?
At least you didn't ask me if he kept up with the people in Titicut Follies. That might have been worse.
Or Welfare, yeah.
Yeah.
You ever keep up with that guy in Welfare? So another one, this one I definitely haven't told you, is when it was a girlfriend I had last year university. And we had not a great breakup. And a month or two later, I went with three of my friends to the Review Theater. And there she was. She's working at the candy counter. And, I decided to handle it well. I don't even think I spoke to her. We went in the theater. We sat down. I can't even remember what we were seeing. partway through, in the middle of the film, footsteps coming, and sure enough, it's her. And she reaches across to my friends and she slaps me in the face.
Wow.
Much to the, merriment of my friends. I think it was Dave
Wow.
Porter, Greg Scully, and might have been Norm. Yeah, it was awful.
Oh my
It was
God.
awful. And then the last one is just, and this is a nothing story. This is like the most typical story in the world. When we went to see Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is now, of course, one of my favorite films, and we drank in the theater and we got caught. That's it. That's the beginning, end, and middle of the story. I think that somebody dropped a beer bottle, and I don't think they kicked us out, which is amazing.
Wow.
We're allowed to stay, but sort of added to the atmosphere.
Okay, so
that's my life at the movies.
Okay, I've got 1 minute each for 3 choices, but I think I can.
Okay.
I'm actually not going to really say anything about virgin suicides. My only comment with virgin suicides is it was probably, I think it might have been the last time in a theater where I was just so swept away by a movie that, my head was in the virgin suicide space for a month after. I think I went and saw it 3 times, like within a month. I think I might have gone with my future wife. Actually, I was raving about it to her, and I went to see it twice on my own. Like, I think I just put it as a notable choice because I don't think I've had that experience with a movie since.
I was going to ask Scott if we'd seen it, but I suddenly remembered, no, I saw it with Tim.
No, you told me to go see it, though. You were the one who said, go see this because you'll love the music in it. And I knew nothing else about it. I was just floored.
And what I remember, sorry, just 10 seconds, was Tim in the opening montage as they're going through the neighborhood saying, that's my mom's neighborhood.
Yeah. No, one of my favorite movies. Titanic is interesting for me because I've seen it twice, believe it or not, in theater. The first time was in Toronto. I can't remember why I saw it. The second time I saw it, however, and I recommend anyone, if you can charter a flight to India, go see a movie like Titanic in India on its opening night, on its opening day. It was the most phenomenal movie experience I've ever had. It's, and this is a thing I think, it's sort of oral cultures, which I kind of refer to India as they look at movies very differently, right? For the 2.5 hours of that movie, there was like nothing but nonstop people yelling at the screen, talking to each other, uproarious laughter, and you get into it, right? Like the experience. No, but I think if you were there whenever, and it helps, like for me, there's a movie like Titanic, which I didn't care that much about, but it was honestly just such an amazing experience. Like, this is just so weird. Like, it's like it's almost like you're in the biggest living room you've ever been in with 300 other people. And, there's the one scene in Titanic, there's like a nude scene. Oh man, you should like, it was just uproarious but this was new to them. I think, I don't think like it was brand new. I think it was new. And I don't think someone had told me, they don't really get a lot of North American movies whatever city I was in at that time. I think it was Bombay or Mumbai, whatever, but I'm not sure. So it was just a remarkable experience that you can't really replicate here. Some movies, you will experience that a little bit, but not at that level. So
I hate to interrupt, Scott. You got about 20 seconds left.
Okay. Frozen and School of Rock. I have stories regarding my kids with those, but I'll just leave it at that. So
okay,
that ties the loop. Streaming, and Charlie Chaplin was a method of streaming. That was going to be my loop around because I had those at home, right? I could play them when I wanted. So anyway.